This building exists. People live in it, people play in it, and move through it every day. This sketch, made on a Tuesday morning with my pencil and a cup of tea, is where it all started. What happened between these two things is what nobody shows you. But today I am going to show you. Most people assume architecture works like this. An architect draws something beautiful, hands it to a contractor, and the contractor builds it. Done. But in reality, there are 15 steps in between those two things, and four of them will actually surprise you. I've been practicing architecture for last 7 years, and I want to show you how a building goes from an idea in someone's head to a structure that exists in our world, and that too with a real life example. So let's start from the beginning. The sketch does not come first, the conversation does. Every project starts with a design brief. What does the client want? What does the site allow? And what the budget can do? And here is the thing that nobody tells architecture students early enough, that the brief is almost never clear. The client will say they want a 3 bedroom house, but what they mean to say is they want their mother in law to have a separate entry. They want their children to not be able to hear the TV sound from the bedroom, and the kitchen to feel large enough, even if it's not. Your first job as an architect is not to design, but to understand what the client actually needs. And usually, it's different from what they say they need. For this project, the brief was simple: a state of the art swimming pool with low operational costs. It was simple on paper, but the constraint they came in later. So, only and only once you have understood the needs of the client, then you pick up the pencil. The first sketch is not a drawing of a building, it is drawing of a question. I'm not trying to design the whole thing in one go. I am trying to figure out, where does the light come from? Where does someone enter from? What do they see first? Or how does this building sit on the piece of land? These marks on paper look rough because they are rough. They are meant to be. At this stage, precision is the enemy. If I draw too carefully, too early, I start solving the wrong problems. What am I essentially doing here is testing ideas cheaply. A line on paper costs me 30 seconds. A wall in concrete costs lakhs that cannot be undone. So I make mistakes here on purpose until I find something that works. For this project, the thing I kept trying to resolve was natural air ventilation. How to make natural air ventilation work without exerting any mechanical ventilation, so that it brings down the operational cost of the project. So this is the version I kept, and here is why. Once a sketch direction is approved by me and then by the client, it has to become a technical document. This is where the design stops being an idea and start becoming instructions. A contractor cannot build from a sketch. They need dimensions. They need to know where every wall sits to the centimeter, how high every slab is, where every beam goes, how the staircase rises, where the electrical points are, and what the window sizes are, and etc. This drawing set for a single swimming pool project, not a large one, runs about 155 sheets. The floor plans, elevations, sections, structural drawings, electrical layout, plumbing layout, details. Every sheet is a conversation with a different person: the structural engineer, the electrician, the plumber, the contractor. Architecture is not a solo act. By the time a project reaches construction, I am coordinating 5 or 6 different professionals and making sure their work does not contradict each other on site. And yes, sometimes it does, but that is what site visits are for. Here is the part architecture school does not fully prepare you for. The building you designed and the building that gets built are never exactly the same thing. Not because anyone made a mistake, though sometimes someone does, but because a drawing is a perfect frictionless world. A construction site is not. Soil conditions change, materials behave differently than expected. A contractor interprets a detail in a way that is technically correct, but not what you intended. On this project, the thing that changed was the entire foundation. Comparing it with the survey drawings, what we found out after excavating is that a difference in the strength of the soil. So, this is not a failure, this is the job. The architect who thinks their drawings are the final word never visits site. That architect produces bad buildings. You have to be there, you have to look at it, you have to keep making decisions until the last day. And then one day, after months, sometimes years, it is done. I want to tell you, if it feels exactly like the sketch. It does not. It never does. It is always different. Sometimes worse in small ways, but often better in ways you did not expect. Light does something in a real room that no drawing can predict. The way a space feels when you are standing inside it, the ceiling height, the acoustics, the smell of the materials, none of that exists on paper. That is why we build, not to execute a drawing, to create something that a person can stand inside. This swimming hall started as a sloping line, but students are going to train and become future athletes in this hall in the years to come. That is the job. The thing that I want people to know about architecture is that it's a purely practical act. I know that the profession has done a very bad job in explaining itself as a practical field, but it is. The romantic image is of an architect alone with his pencil creating, but in reality, it is an architect and the contractor in a WhatsApp group discussing at 8 p.m. why does the beam on site does not match with the beam on the drawing. Both of these things are true as well as important. The sketch is important, but the site visit is also as important. Good architecture is not just good designs, it is good idea which survives reality. The budget, the approvals, the contractor, the weather, and the client who change their mind, but also materials that surprisingly behave in a different manner than intended. The sketch is where thinking starts, and the building is where it ends. Everything in between is actual work. Brief, sketch, technical drawings, site visit, and the building. 5 stages, each one completely different from the other, each one capable of breaking the project if you are not paying attention to it. That's how a line on paper becomes something you can walk into. And if you are new here, this channel is about the real practice of architecture, not the polished one. So, if that is something you want more of, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.